What's up, everybody? I'm Caleb Ochoa, also known as NFL Caleb 22. This is Betting the NFL Week 2. Um, I'm with my co-host Eric Weatherly, also known as DWeezy. How you doing, man?
What's going on, man? Hope everybody's feeling good out there.
Yeah, I'm not doing too great after that weekend. Pretty
Yeah,
pretty
it,
crappy.
it, it was a bit of a shaky opening, but I mean, that's kind of what you expect out of a week one, especially with, in my opinion, the way they've cut down on the preseason and teams' approach to the preseason. It's hard not to look at week one almost like a preseason game. And I think in a large aspect, that's what we saw out of a lot of these teams.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll get into that. We'll before we get into our picks for this week, we'll recap what happened last weekend. We'll start with what the favorites did. Straight up, they went 10-5-1, and against the spread, they went even 8-8. The home teams straight up went 6-9-1, and against the spread, they were 10-6, and the over and unders. Not a lot of points scored this week. The overs went 5-11. Saying all that, what do you think about any of that stand out to you?
Well, that game total stat, the unders coming in more, it sort of leans to that idea that it in a lot of ways this is kind of like the last preseason game. You got teams first stringers still figuring things out, still getting that cohesion together and that timing down. Um, and that's something, first week or two you could potentially target, not necessarily bet it blind across the board, but there could be some potential for value behind those games where traditionally there might not be.
Yeah, and we'll get into the biggest upset of the week, which was the New York Giants plus 7.5, plus 290 on the money line at the Tennessee Titans. They end up getting an upset, winning 21-20. This is one of the biggest surprises of the weekend. Giants still won in the end against the Titans. They did it by containing Derrick Henry. He only got about 82 yards. And inversely, the Titans could not stop Saquon Barkley. He ran for 164 yards, a touchdown. And now, if you bet on the Titans, you were looking good throughout halftime up to halftime because you were up 13-0, and then it all fell apart from there. The Titans could never really put them away. They let them hang around. The Giants ended up coming all the way back, and they went to that ballsy move, went for two on that final touchdown drive. They took the lead, and the Titans come back and they missed the game winning field goal. But what do you think about this game, hey Derek?
Yeah, I definitely think this is one the Titans let get away from them. I had that. I was taking the Titans minus the points in that game, and like as you said, clearly the Giants made some adjustments. They came out and executed, and they were able to get back in that game. It was a pretty ballsy move by the first year head coach in New York to go for two. Saying we're going for the win. We're not playing to tie because you're still giving the ball over back to the Titans with a chance to go attempt what they did. Um, so yeah, it was definitely, I don't want to say shocking, but as you said, they were on, at least by the spread, the biggest upset on the week, and they definitely earned it.
Yeah, we'll get to the largest cover against the spread. That came in the Kansas City Chiefs minus 6.5 at the Arizona Cardinals. Final score was 44-21. I was completely wrong on this one. I thought the Cardinals were one of the better teams in the NFC. I still think that, but yeah, I did not foresee them just getting blown out at home against Chiefs. Chiefs, I said they might experience some early struggles. That didn't happen. Patrick Mahomes seems, if just fine without Tyreek Hill. He got off to a great start to the season. He threw 5 touchdowns. Um, and yeah, I mean the Cardinals defense had no answer for him. But I wouldn't overreact to what how the Cardinals played week one. I think they'll be better for the rest of the season. But yeah, this was really shocking to me. I just did not see this coming. But how'd you feel?
Um, yeah, like as I said, last week I thought that the Cardinals were probably. I was looking to see a bit of a drop off from the Chiefs. I won't lie. In week one, I won't say they, vanquished those doubts, but they definitely locked them up for a little while because if that team can come out and play even remotely like they did, they're a dangerous team. And that's just the
Yeah,
simple facts of it.
absolutely. The bad beat of the week. If you bet on the Las Vegas Raiders, yeah, it was a pretty bad beat. They get 4.5 points on the road against the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers were up 17-3 at half. You thought you had no chance, but then the Raiders crept their way back in the third quarter. So you started getting a little hope. It's like, all right, you know, maybe we can cover this 4.5 point spread. We don't have to win. We just have to get close. But then what that Raiders scored a touchdown with 9:32 left in the game, make it 24-19. But then the Raiders decide to go for two, and to the dismay of all the bettors who put their money on the Raiders, they don't convert. They lose 24-19, and they miss that cover by just a half point, and that is why it's the bad beat of the week. Um, but yeah, what did you think about this game?
Um, me personally, I didn't get to see much from this game, but I do think the Chargers are going to be a strong team. I was big on them in the preseason videos that we did. I think that there's a strong chance that they come out of this division. But yeah, a large part of me, yeah, as you heard me say, I think week one preseason game, you're looking to get some consistency out of these teams, and unfortunately, with a number of teams, that's pretty much what we saw.
Yeah, and then I'll just recap my own personal picks of the week. Not a good week. I went 2-3, had a losing week. My best pick though was the Pittsburgh Steelers getting 6.5 at the Cincinnati Bengals. Final score was 23-20. I was right all the way around on this one. I pretty much called this game. I knew the Bengals were overvalued here. I knew this was way too much points for a divisional matchup. Um, and I think the Bengals were a little overhyped. Not that they're a horrible team or anything. I just thought they were way overhyped for getting 6.5 or -6.5. Thought that was way too much. Bengals never led once this game. Burrow throws 4 interceptions, fumbles twice, lost one of them, and the Steelers got after him. I mean, they sacked him 7 times, and yeah, I said last week, like I did not believe that you could just fix off the line just like that.
Yeah, I didn't have a good week per se with things as I believe I ended up going 2-4 on the game total or on the game spreads that I had last week. The Cooper Cup receptions prop did hit going to well to the over. He covered the 7.5 receptions by halftime, having 8 going into the half. Finished the game with 12 receptions, over 100. This is a market that I think you could potentially target. Further down the line, if we see Van Jefferson continue to struggle with injury issues and miss snaps, it's just a main weapon of Matt Stafford that I think the books are going to be afraid to pump that number up too high. I doubt we see this prop hit double digits in the first couple weeks of the season, but clearly we've seen Cooper Cup be a threat for double digit receptions in just about every game. Um, this being said, that's definitely something that I'll be watching. And as you heard Caleb mention, the Titans weren't able to pull out their game. That was one uh that I was another prop that I was on with Derrick Henry and his rushing total that came in just slightly uh towards the under. I believe the number was at 98 and a half, and he finished with roughly 85 or 86 yards, mid 80s. Not necessarily a bad performance, but not the type that you would expect from Derrick Henry. And so that did end up being a loss. Another prop that I was on was Christian McCaffrey recording a rushing touchdown in his game, which did come through for me. I thought the number, it being at one minus 130, that was, you always like to be able to find a plus number on things, but that's the type of dynamic player where if you can find a stat like that, even on with a minus number, it makes it a very tempting prop. And you see, it was one that came through. Uh, but we're definitely looking to dive into things with week 2 and, find some winners because, that's what we're here for. We'll take the lumps, along the way, but we're definitely trying to find those winners out there.
Yeah, so you went over your week.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that was just what I was going to ask you. I'll just finally wrap up with my worst pick of the week. What it was Broncos -6.5 against the Seahawks. Obviously, I've been really high on the Broncos all off season. They lose 16-7 completely. I really just put all my eggs in Russell Wilson basket, and it just did not pay off, at least for week 1. I really thought they were going to. I really thought with him going back to Seattle, I thought he would play with emotion going into that game, and I thought he was just going to go off. Just didn't happen. It looked like the Seahawks are the ones who played with all the emotion to kind of stick to Russ. But
Wait,
yeah,
Mr. Unlimited didn't have
yeah,
emotion?
I guess not, man. Yeah, so I was wrong about that. Hopefully, I'm not wrong for the rest of the season. But for week 1, just wasn't a good look for me. Um, but that's it for the week 1 recap. We'll move on to this week's picks, and I'll start off with my first pick, which is the Washington Commanders +2.5 at the Detroit Lions, and I will take the Washington Commanders plus because this team to me, they have the same problems from last year. They're a tough, competitive bunch, but they can put up points, but they don't know how to win games. Um, they showed that last week. They scored points, they got back in the game, but they didn't end up getting the win. I feel like that's going to happen here. Washington 38 points. Hutchinson really didn't give them really any impact in that game. Quarter fought back, got the win. The Lions, I think, will have trouble stopping Carson Wentz. He threw 4 touchdowns last week. Kind of spread the ball around a little bit. He threw John Dotson, his rookie receiver. He got 2 touchdowns. That's just another threat in the receiving core to go along with Terry McLaurin. And also the Washington is 7-2-1 in the last 10 games, and Detroit is 3-6 against the spread, and Detroit is 3-16-1 straight up in their last 20 games. And the Lions, yeah, I think the Lions will keep it close as usual, as they usually do, but ultimately fail to pull out the win, which is in their nature. And if you're telling me that Washington is getting points in this one, yeah, I'm going to be all over that.
Yeah, as far as that Washington
Line.
game, if I was to play it, I would have to go towards. I'd be going the other way. The Detroit Lions are a team that I kind of felt that were capable of covering their season total wins prop at 6.5. So not to say that necessarily this is one of those wins, but I definitely feel this is a game that could go their way. I am not a big supporter of Carson Wentz. Yes, he put up the 4 TDs, but we also saw a couple bonehead interceptions, and that's in a lot of ways that's been what has commemorated his career for the most part. Is it's not a lack of physical talent; it's more the mental side of the game that he struggles with. more that gunslinger mentality. And as I said, I think Detroit could pull that one out.
All right, you want to go with your first pick?
Yeah. First up, I'll be riding with Tampa Bay minus 2.5 against the New Orleans Saints. I feel that yes, we saw a sluggish Tampa Bay team get going. I think people are overselling the Saints. You know, as we got closer to the regular season, the Saints were a team you heard brought up a little bit more as a potential contender for the NFC South. Um, and I think people got a somewhat of a false bill of goods in that Atlanta matchup where we saw them put up 27 points, I believe. Um, Barely squeak out of that game with the win. And if I'm not mistaken, the spread in that game going into things was somewhere around 7, 8 points. So clearly the books did not think that Atlanta was on the same level as the New Orleans Saints and coming again in against these Tampa Bay Bucks. I think 2.5 points is more than enough that a Tom Brady led team can win by. If we're talking about just covering by a field goal, and you got Tom Brady on your side, I feel that that could easily be covered, even if we see um, a little bit of injury concern coming into this game at the wide receiver position. Tom Brady is the type of quarterback that has shown that he can throw wide receivers open. He knows how to audible to get players in the best position. You see it a lot with a player like Patrick Mahomes, where he knows how to put his wide receivers where they need to be. It's not just the wide receiver running the route, but the QB setting them up for success. And that being said, I think that minus 2.5 is way too low for this matchup.
Yeah, I was on your side on this one. I couldn't pull a trigger on this one only because of the record against the Saints and the Bucks is not good. Um, for the Bucks, they're like 0-4 in last few matchups that they played. Um, that's the only thing that scared me on to take the Bucks. I would have they were a consideration, but ultimately I just don't know if that streak is going to continue or not. So it made me stay away from that one. But for my second pick, I got the Indianapolis Colts at Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm taking the Jaguars +4. The Colts were really impressive to me, and their tie against the Texans. Before the season, I thought Matt Ryan was old and washed up, and I really didn't think he had much left. And they were down 20-3 going into the third quarter. Yeah, they made a fourth quarter comeback, but they didn't really do anything in overtime, and that's what ended up in the tie. Obviously, John Taylor had a hell of a day, but it still only ended up being 20 points. Jaguars had a tough battle. They went back and forth with Washington. I think if they, don't put it all on Trevor Lawrence to win the game for him, he had 42 attempts. I think if they ran the ball a little more, they could have came out with the win. Because Robinson had a 6-yard average and Etienne had 11.8 average. They ran a little more. I think they come out with the win there. Um, and I think that'd be the key to winning this game. Also to keep, John Taylor off the field as well. And if they just stop him, definitely think I have a good chance in this one. I think they can keep it close. Definitely close enough to cover a 4-point spread. And obviously, if you're going to give me a lot of points on a divisional matchup, I like to take that, especially as a home underdog. I definitely take that. Um, but yeah, ultimately the Colts are 0-5 against the spread in the last 5 games, and 1-4 in their last 5 divisional games. So I'll definitely be on the Jaguars on this one.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you that the Colts are overhyped in my opinion. I didn't think it was possible, but I'm pretty sure they went out and downgraded at quarterback this past off season, and they
I thought so.
traded to bring someone in. I don't that makes zero sense to me. But that being said, I'm personally not on this game, but I completely agree with what you're saying about just their lack of showing and past divisional games and past matchups against Jacksonville, and being having a trend like that against the spread. That's definitely one of those things where if they lose against the spread in week 2, you could potentially look at fading this play for the better part of the first half of the season. You start getting into a trend that's going, even if it extended from the prior year. If you talk about something that's creeping on 6, 7, 8 games in that range, I mean, you can almost bet that blind. But so I definitely look to take the underdog in that situation plus the points. Um, my second play that I'll be targeting, um, Philadelphia Eagles -2 in their game against the Minnesota Vikings. A lot of people were shocked to see the Minnesota Vikings go out and beat the Green Bay Packers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big believer of the Packers this season. They essentially went out and did nothing to improve their team for the most part, or at least in any significant way, after trading away Devontae Adams. Um, and the Eagles, they prove they have an offense, a powerful offense. And if you can't keep that offense contained, it's a question of how well are you going to be able to keep up with that offensive performance. And I'm not sure that Minnesota will be able to do that with Kirk Cousins at the helm. Philadelphia has one of the best, if not, I'd say top 3 defensive lines in the league. You have players like Fletcher Cox, Hassan Reddick. Um, I feel like there's another name that I'm forgetting that all on that defensive line. And so potentially a player like Dalvin Cook, you may see neutralize some. And I think that plays into the favor of the Philadelphia Eagles if the Vikings can't lean on that run game to help open up Justin Jefferson downfield. And we've seen in the past where putting the ball in Kirk Cousins' hands is not what you want to do to try and win the game.
Yeah, I was on opposite side of this one. Um, I wasn't like I said. The Eagles let 35 points from Lions. I don't think their defense was that impressive with all the guys that you mentioned and all the guys they got in the offseason. It didn't look like it made a whole lot of difference to me. Um, yeah, but the reason why I stayed away from the game, just like you said, Kirk Cousins in prime time. Uh, yeah, that scares me. So I'm not going to take either side on that one because I don't like either team in this situation. I think it's too close to call, at least for me. But I go with my third pick, and that is the New England Patriots at Pittsburgh Steelers, +1.5. Obviously, Steelers are coming off their impressive upset against the Bengals, and I think that we can continue to ride that high against the Patriots. Defense was hellacious on Sunday, causing 4 turnovers. First forcing Burrow to get 4 picks, sacked him sometimes. Even though they will be without TJ Watt, but I still believe they can. They have enough on their defense to still be fierce, especially against a quarterback Mac Jones, who is questionable for this game. So you don't know if they'll throw out Brian Hoyer or not. Um, but even though, no matter who it is, Mac Jones didn't look that great. Their offense was very stagnant. He only threw for a 213 and 1 touchdown. And as a team, they ran only for 78 yards. Offense was very poor. They only scored like 7 points. And I think in this game, Trubisky will again do enough not to give the game away and come out with a win. Um, that's why I was very surprised to see the Steelers at home getting a 1.5. So yeah, against like a struggling pass team that doesn't have a lot of talent on there. Um, and also New England 1-5 against the spread in the last 6 games, while Pittsburgh is 4-2 against the spread in their last 6, and 6-0-1 straight up in their last 7 games at home. So I'm going to be on the Steelers in this one. I really like them in this situation.
Yes, it'll definitely be an interesting matchup to see how the Patriots handle the passing game. There's a chance that we don't see. I hadn't heard a timetable on Najee Harris, but uh, I think we could expect to see him miss at least a week or two from the little bit of the news I heard back around Sunday night, I believe. Uh, But as far as this New England matchup, I think we can expect for him to not be there. So they're going to possibly look to lean more on their passing game with Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool. And um, I didn't happen to see Pickens' stats for the game Sunday, but he's somebody that's shown that has a potential to create space,
Mhm.
be lethal in open field. The type of player where if they can make that first guy miss, they might be able to pick up extra 20 yards on a play, and that makes you lethal if you can get the ball into the hands of a player like that, whether it be a Deontay Johnson or a Claypool. A 5 yard pass turn into a 20-yard gain is, you ain't got to be able to do much as the quarterback.
After you won your third pick.
Yeah. Mine. I'm gonna be going to the Carolina Panthers game where I will be riding with the Panthers and the points, though I feel that this could be a game where, getting back into those inconsistencies. I think this matchup's going to center more around the New York Giants rushing attack versus the Carolina Panthers rush defense, which has shown that that's been the weakness of their defense going even into back last year, and we see that you know Carolina came out and showed the ability to have the deep ball threat, which is something that has been absent in their offense in the past. We saw last year where Sam Darnold, he had the arm but not the accuracy, and two separate plays Sunday we saw Baker Mayfield connect with a wide receiver, a tight end for 50 plus in the Robbie Anderson reception. It was 75. Um, you know, you have players like DJ Moore, a speedster like Robbie Anderson, a CMC players where, like I just said with Pittsburgh, if you can get these guys into space, they have the ability to go out there and put up a lot of yards on a play, score a big play. That Robbie Anderson TD, that was a one play, 75-yard drive, which completely flipped that game around and probably was the only thing that put the Panthers back into that game. Uh, and so yeah, I think that we may it's a lesser of a pass rush that we're going to see out of the New York Giants taking on the Carolina Panthers. That was a focal point for I think a lot of fans, and in the same aspect, you know, nobody's saying that the Panthers offensive line is the best in the league, but if you're going up against all pro talent and a good defensive line, yeah, your offensive line might come out looking a little worse than they are. A little some of that shine on that new rookie left tackle. Might not. It might be rubbed off a little bit. Got a little dirt on the new toy, but things come with time. We're gonna see. Probably a more suitable matchup to try and judge this offensive line, and I think towards the second half, we seem to see Baker have a better timing and more cohesion with his wide receivers and just overall. And as I said, first preseason or last preseason of the season, week two, we see Panthers could actually come out firing in the first half this time instead of three straight 3-and-outs.
Yeah, this game I just didn't know what to think. I I I don't I didn't know what to think about Baker Mayfield's performance. Looked a little shaky to me. And then obviously the Giants they got lucky to get out with the win. So I'm not sure what I'm seeing from either of these teams. So I couldn't even begin to make a judgment on this game. So that's why I completely stayed away from it. Um, but yeah, for my fourth pick, I got the Seattle Seahawks plus 10 at San Francisco 49ers. Now I'm not going to overreact to the Seahawks big win against the Broncos on Monday night. That's not what this is. Um, obviously there was a lot of emotion in that stadium, and I didn't really expect Geno Smith to play. I don't really expect Geno Smith to play like that every single week, but or even their defense play like that. But even before the season, I thought Trey Lance wasn't going to pan out. I thought 49ers weren't going to be a good team because of the decision to go with Lance over Jimmy G. Um, so I'm going to still base it off of that. And as far as week one goes, they basically proven me right, and that is a bad decision. Trey Lance is so far not really working out. Um, and they lost to a Bears team that I still think is one of the worst teams in the league, despite getting this win. Um, they lost to a quarterback that completed just 8 passes. Like I said, Trey Lance, pretty bad. He was 13-28, 164 yards and an interception. And he was the leading rusher because the 49ers lost their starting running back in Elijah Mitchell. That puts even more pressure on Trey Lance to make plays. And the Seahawks were able to hold Russell Wilson down pretty well. In that entire Broncos offense, they just scored 1 touchdown, only 16 points. And to say that the 49ers will beat the Seahawks by more than 10 points, it's just hard to believe for me when they barely scored 10 points against the Bears. Like, I just don't, I just can't see that happening. Uh, the Seahawks are 15-5 against the spread in the last 20 games, 7-1 straight up in the last 8 games against the 49ers. So I'm definitely really, really coming in this Seahawks plus 10. I mean, that's a big number to hit. So I definitely like that number.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Plus 10 is a pretty large number, even though we see in a couple of matchups across this week, too, that, we see a couple uh, double digit spreads. And at the book I'm looking at, they actually have that same matchup, Seattle and San Francisco. San Fran minus 8.5. So that just goes to show you that maybe some books are favoring San Francisco more than others. A point and a half is a big difference on a spread
Yeah.
in an NFL game. Um, so it, if I was looking at that 10, I would definitely be leaning more to Seattle, even though I feel that it's hard to judge what we saw out of San Fran because of the monsoon that they were playing in. Um,
Yeah, that's why I said that's why I'm not going to react over to week one. I
yeah,
already thought they were bad before the season, so I'm not saying just because of week one. I'm going with that.
yeah, exactly. I still, this is definitely if I was on this game, I would as far as the spread, I would definitely have to lean towards Seattle. Just that number being that big. Um, we're like, if I'm not mistaken, there's a good chance that we won't see Kittle in week two, which is that just adds to the lack of offensive production for the 49ers. And so it makes it even more difficult to cover that plus 10, even if they win the game outright.
All right. Your next pick.
Yeah, my next, I'm going to the Miami Dolphins Baltimore Ravens matchup. I think the key to this game is going to be how the Baltimore Ravens secondary handles the wide receivers of Miami. We saw in game one where, they have the guys. If, as I was saying earlier, if they create space and you put the ball in their hand, they're dangerous. And it's a question of how many times can you stop them. Uh, and if we saw pretty much what we saw out of week one, we saw a team that had that cohesion that, you heard me mention before that was critical in some of these other games where you saw teams not produce over a whole quarter, a whole half, whether it be first half or second half, just teams completely disappear. We didn't see that out of Miami. Miami came out firing, ready to throw punches, and I think that in this Baltimore matchup, it's going to be a serious question of how can the Baltimore secondary keep up with what we're going to see out of the wide receiver core of Tyreek Hill and Waddell and the likes there. And that being said, getting a couple points in this matchup and still covering the field goal at plus 3.5, I definitely like that. Where this game could come down to a last second field goal.
Yeah, I definitely think this game is going to be close. That's why I didn't pick it. I thought it was too close to call. I think they're both pretty good teams. I do think the Ravens are better though, but how much better, I don't know. That's why I couldn't pick it. Um, and they can't really tell too much off of a beat down of the Jets. Um, Dolphins look
and
pretty good
and
against the
not
Patriots.
and just I wanted to point out that the final score of that Jets game was actually a bit misleading when you see the, I believe it was a drop TD and a missed field goal. So that's 10 points. Yes, they would have still lost the game, but it puts the spread of that game in a bit of a different light when you see just how close this team was to having 10 more points on the score at the end of the day.
Yeah. So like I said, not really sure how much better they are than them. So I couldn't really pick against the spread. And I just really stayed away from that one as well. But I'll get to my last pick, which is the Tennessee Titans at the Buffalo Bills -10. I'm going to be all over the Bills on this one. The Bills came out opening night, proved everyone who picked them to win the Super Bowl looking like like proving everybody right. Then they look like the top contender for uh, winning the Super Bowl. They beat the defending Super Bowl champs by 21 points. They shut them out in the second half, limiting them to 10 points throughout the game. The Titans, got upset by the Giants, mainly because they couldn't get Derrick Henry going. He always ran for 82 yards on 21 carries, had a 3.9 average. And I feel like the Bills have that defense that is capable of stopping Henry as well because they just did it to the Rams. They kept them to just 52 yards. That's for the whole team rushing yards. And the Bills feel like they are on a mission this year, after what transpired last season, how things ended. They feel like they're going into every game with that passion that is ready get back and get to the Super Bowl finally. Um, and yeah, the Titans gonna have a rough time with stopping Diggs and Davis. They looked impressive on the opening Thursday night. The the Bills, all last year, the Bills won when they won games. They blew out the teams. You know, I believe the Bills will win this game. Therefore, it will be a blowout, and that definitely covered this large 10-point spread. And I think they could force Tannehill into making mistakes as they did the Stafford. Stafford threw 3 picks, and I think they can do the same in this game. And the Bills are 4-1-1 against the spread in their last 6, and the Titans are 3-6 against the spread in their last 9. So definitely like the Bills to just beat down on the Tennessee Titans this week, and pretty much a lot of teams are going to be beat down. It's just I've won in the many games. Many blowouts they'll have this season.
Yes, I definitely feel the Titans will not be able to offensively put up what some might be expect. On that defense, you see Rousseau, Oliver on the defensive line. Von Miller made a statement appearance in his first game with the Buffalo Bills, coming off the edge. Um, this is a defense that's quite possibly lacking their most talented player in White at the cornerback position, who still hasn't returned from his injury last year. Uh, so you're basically talking about a team that's literally, as far as a defense, that's literally going to get better at some point. And they come in, they definitely have the ability to come in and, I don't want to say neutralize a player like Derrick Henry, but be able to remove, you know, there's a big difference between a 3rd and 5 and a 3rd and 2. Especially when you get into how you might the play calling, a run versus a pass play. Um, if you're able to keep Derrick Henry off the field in some of those 3rd down situations, that can be, very key and critical in some instances, whether it be flipping the field or stopping a drive and shifting the momentum back to your team. Uh, we saw offensively this team just come out firing, as you said. Uh, we saw right before the season kickoff, Buffalo Bills extend uh, tight end Dawson Knox contract, uh, which just further faith in this team, saying as an organization they believe in the players they have on the roster and the people that they have within the building, as well as making moves like bringing in a Von Miller. And so, yeah, there, I see this being maybe the most unlikely blowout of this week 2 Sunday.
All right, and for your last pick.
Yes, for my last pick, I'm gonna be going to a player prop. Going into this game, I'm going with the Justin Herbert passing yardage under to 85 and a half. Um, they're looking. It's looking like we're going to see this team without Keenan Allen for a little while. Mike Williams might be slightly banged up, or at least not at 100% if we see him suit up. Um, and not to say that he's expected to miss the game, but it's the NFL. We quite often know that players are not playing at 100% at times, whether it be the beginning of the season, late in the season. Um, but I feel that there's a lack of run presence in the Chargers offense that would help alleviate a absence like a Keenan Allen from their offense, and not having that as much of a deep threat or that ability to stretch the field vertically uh, will allow teams to be able to key in better on the running backs that they have there in Los Angeles. I was about to hate myself and say San Diego. But yes, I definitely think one, it's a question of can't will this offense be able to sustain drives and things like that, convert third downs, which, again, when you're talking about having your number one wide receiver being on the sidelines, it can definitely rattle a offensive game plan. And we've seen that the Kansas City Chiefs, they came in prepared for week one. Um, it's not shocking with an Andy Reid led team. And I'm still big on the Chargers for this season, but as far as this passing prop, it's quite possible that we see both these teams go out and not be able to put up points, especially with the defense that the Chargers have. We might. Uh, Patrick Mahomes might be running for his life. That's not something we've ever seen before. And
Yeah.
you got a Bosa coming off the edge. You got Mack coming off the other side. You got a variety of other quality players. I happen to see a former Panther from the 2021 season record half a sack. So you see where when you have players like that on the outside, it creates mismatches and one on ones, and against a team like the Chiefs, we could see Mahomes running for his life just as well as we could see Herbert being pressured more and having to get rid of the ball faster and things like that. So I'm gonna be riding with the under 285 and a half on Justin Herbert's passing prop.
All right, man. It's good stuff. I'll wrap up our picks for this week. We will get into our question portion of the show. Before we do that, we like to help you guys out. You guys can help us out by pressing that like button and subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And if you would like to support even more, you can join our Patreon and click that link in the description below if you feel like you want to support a little more. But um, also, if you want to be part of this portion of the show, you can leave down a question in the comment section, and we will feature your question at this time. But for my question, for my question, I got for you is teasers. Do you like them? Do you play them? And also betting down a spread. Just take me through the process of how that works, or like buying a few points on a spread. Do you do that? Do you usually do that, or what's your strategy going into something like that?
Uh, uh, for the most part, I've traditionally stayed away from teasers, but as far as maybe betting down a spread or looking at alternate spreads. If there's a team that you feel like that you have a lock or a good read on when it comes to a specific sport or specific season, it's definitely markets that can be interesting to investigate because, especially in a sport like football, you heard me reference 1.5 points earlier. That's a pretty big swing, when you're talking spreads. And depending on what book you're looking at, you could see, the difference between a plus number and a minus number, and in some cases, maybe being a 1 point difference. and so that's something that could be very attractive to you. Or uh, in the adverse as well, you could look at potentially a blowout. Some of these matchups, may be close, and you have a feeling that Team A is going to blow out Team B because you know, just to use an example, you heard me referencing Miami's wide receivers versus the DB core of Baltimore Ravens. Well, if you feel that the Ravens are going to stand up and shut them down, that might be an area you may try to target as getting Baltimore minus more points than what the spread is, and capitalizing on that plus number that you get in return.
All right, and like I said, hopefully our bets will help you guys win some money. Week one wasn't so hot, but we're both looking to come back with a winning week this week, and let's all cash in. But for now, you can tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, y'all can reach me at Backyard Action Media here on YouTube, where I'm trying to put out daily content for the most part. NFL's going off, so I will have NFL props, spreads, game totals, whatever I may come across that where I see value. You heard me mention CMC TD prop, that was something I was riding on last week. I'm kicking myself I did not play that Baker Russian TD that I was looking at plus 650. Oh man, I mean, you talk about mad. I was in the stands like screaming at myself like, yes, we scored, but oh my god, why did I not play that prop? But yes, as I said, you can catch me at Backyard Action Media and also at DWeatherly90 on Twitter.
All right. You can find me at NFL Caleb 22 on Instagram and Twitter. You can find me on this channel on Mondays, Good Friends, Better Rivals with Ferris. And you can find me on Sunday nights recapping Game of Thrones House of the Dragon reviews right after that show airs. And you can find my articles that go along with this show on our website, letsgetreadynetwork.com. So go check all that out. Yeah, like I said, let's get ready to win some money.